Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you new here, my name is Donna. Thank you so much for joining us today. And for those of you not new, as always, thank you so much for supporting my channel. I super appreciate you guys coming by. Today is the next installment in my Palette Roulette series, in which we review a palette. We let an app choose it for us. We review it over the week, do some looks with it, come back to you with some swatches, some information, and pictures of those looks we created. And this is number 51, and the palette that we got last week was this one. It is the Morphe 15N, which is the Night Master Artistry Palette. This is a 15-pan palette by Morphe. And on the Morphe website, it has 4.7 stars and 280 reviews. This is what the palette looks like. It does have a nice mirror on it, and yeah, that is what the palette looks like. It retails for $16, but when I looked it up today as I'm filming this, it was sold out on the Morphe website, and that is the only place I could find it besides like eBay. So I don't know. I got it in Boxy Charm. I was really actually excited to get this one in Boxy Charm. This is the one. It had 4 different ones that were coming in the Boxy Charm boxes, and this one I am actually excited that I received because it is the more plummy in tone. As you guys can see, it does have some really distinct plum tones in there, and it's the one I wanted. There was 2 that I wanted, and this was one of them. Not sure. I mean, it's on the Morphe website, so I know it was for sale at some point. I just don't know if it still continues to be for sale and is just sold out at this moment, but it did say sold out in the screen for this palette. So this palette has 22.5 grams of product, or 0.79 ounces of product, so that equates to about 0.05 ounces per pan. That is the same size as a ColourPop shadow, and they are about 1 inch in diameter. So there are 15 shades ranging from mattes to shimmers, or mattes and shimmers. There are 9 matte shadows and 6 shimmer shadows in this palette. There's mostly browns in here. I would say if you took out like this bottom row and maybe this one here, that's all browns, right? So it could just be a very neutral palette for anybody with a pop of plum. And I would say these are more plums than they are purples. It's definitely not got that purple vibe to them, and they come off a little bit muskier, dirtier, darker than say a purple would. So definitely not the same shades as my hair, which desperately needs to get new color onto it. Most of the mattes in here were a teensy bit chalky, but I will say that they blended out pretty well. There was a couple of shades that I struggled with. A couple of the darker plummy tones were a little more chalky and a little harder to blend. Therefore, the browns were perfection. The browns in this palette, perfection. I think that's one thing that Morphe really does well, is browns and oranges and earth tones. Sorry about my phone. Forgot to turn it off. But the shimmers in here, I really did love them, but they got hard pan. Like, I'm not sure if you guys can see, but this one down here has quite a bit of hard pan on it. This one has quite a bit. This one has quite a bit. This one I actually had to dig into with my brush because I didn't have like a piece of tape that I could tape across the top of it and take that hard pan off. So I kind of like dug my brush into it and kind of mushed it up and then repressed it because I was out and about, and I didn't have any of the luxuries of being at home and being able to deal with those things. So I'm not impressed with it for that reason. The shimmers were beautiful. They just worked better wet, and because they worked better wet, going in with that wet brush really created a decent amount of hard pan in each one of these pans. I will say With that being said, my favorite shimmer is this one here that I did have quite a bit of struggle with. This is what that shadow looks like just on my finger. And then this one here, which is called Unique, it is one that I used in my brow bone quite often. It is just a really nice, like, seamy inner corner brow bone kind of shade. Very, very, very pretty. I was just kind of disappointed in the hard pan nature of all the shimmers. I will say too that even though the mattes were kind of a wee bit chalky, and they did blend well, there was little to no fallout with them. I did notice some fallout in some of the darker shades, but not a lot. So again, this is mostly browns, champagnes, and plumminess to this. It is a mostly cool tone palette. There are some pops of warm tones in there though. I think it's a pretty perfect palette for most people to use in conjunction with another palette. So if you guys watched my last video when we introduced this as the palette that we were going into this week, I told you all that it was right here in my station, my vanity right here where I film, and I do typically pick this up for this shade right here, which I use often to set my primer on my eyes. I also go into it for some of these browns for just blendability of other colors I might be working with. It's a palette that sits on top of my vanity because I use it quite frequently to help out other palettes in the blending sense, but also because this really perfect setting shade. So with that being said, let's look at some of the shadows. Let's go ahead and swatch them. So we're going to do the first row here. And we have, again, we're going to do it on my hands. We have Custom here, which is just a pretty perfect matte cool flesh tone color. Used it every single day to set my eyeshadow primer. Then we have this one here, which is Unique, and it is a golden champagne shimmer. I used it often for my brow. And then we have this shade here, which is Selfie. It is a matte terracotta that, as you see, leans a little more orange than it does brown. And then we have this one here, which is it's called Talent, and it is a copper shimmer, and it goes really well with the browns in the palette as an all over the lid shade. And then we have this shade here, which is called Shook, and it is a matte, like, wet clay color. It leans a bit red in its tone. So I do have, so that was row 1 in the palette. I did use this shade today as my all over, sorry, get in frame. I did use this shade today as my all over shade for setting my primer. I also have this one in my brow bone today, and I have this one as the center shade in my lid with a little bit of this right down the absolute center of that, like, halo eye type scenario. So next we're going to go in to row 2 here, and we're going to go this way across. The first one is Va-Va-Voom. This is a matte, like, red wine color. This is actually a shade that I had a hard time blending in the palette. It has a really nice, like, purple brown shade range to it, but it is a little bit hard to blend. I think it's just one of the darker shades that had just enough purple in it that it was a little bit patchy. The next shade is this one here, and it is called Illustrated. It is a plum shimmer that really leans more like taupe than it does plum. Then we have this shade here, which is Goals, and it is a matte, like, russet brown is what it's described as on the website. And then we have this one here, which is a matte chocolate brown, and it is called Editorial. And I used that color actually to really blend out any of the purples because it was a nice like contrast to some of the darker purples in the palette. And then we have this one here, which was one of my favorites in the palette, and it is called Creativity. It is a really pretty pink golden shimmer that leans a little bit more orange than it does pink, but up close it does have a lot of pink and gold to it. So those are those 5. Again, that was this second row here. This color is my favorite, but it was the shade that I had the worst time with as far as hard pan went and did have to jab my brush into it. This one is a really pretty shimmer color. It just doesn't have, it leans more towards a satin than it does towards a shimmer, and it is a little more taupe than it is purple. So it can have like that gray purple shift to it that you sometimes get from a really nice taupe. The last row is probably the grippiest row in the pans, meaning it feels a little more gritty than the other shades did. The top 2 rows really were super buttery soft, almost silky to the touch, and you could dig your finger in and you didn't really feel like that catch in the shades. This row is definitely the most grippy, and it is the darkest row in the palette and also has all the plums really in the palette. This first one here is called Scene, and it is a matte dark plum. It's described as a black currant color on the website, and I find that actually to be true. This one I did see quite a bit of fallout with. You really have to dig your brush in to get a really nice color payoff with this color. In the palette, it is in my eye look today. It is the color that I have on both the outer and inner sections of my eyes, but I did blend it with this next color quite often just to pull the purple out of it a little bit more. And this one is called Cliché. It is a matte Merlot. You guys can see in both of those shades too, they're a little more patchy than the other ones that I already have swatched for you. This one is called Excuse Me, and it is a dark purple shimmer that leans more into that like black currant realm as well, but it does have a really nice like glow to it. I really like that color. And then this one here, which is called Hello, it is just a matte dark plum brown, which I kind of liken to the color of a prune or prune juice. That is really what I kind of think that color reminds me of a lot more. It does have a lot of plumminess to it, but it also has a lot of brown to it, so it definitely looks like a prune juice. And then there is that shade right there, which is the last one, and it is called Craze, and it is described as a taupey mauve shimmer, which I definitely feel like the other shade, the Illustrated, was a little more taupey than that one was, but it is a really pretty shadow. It goes really well with every other shade in this palette. Really pretty all over the lid shade. I think I used it once for a halo eye. You guys, I didn't get very many pictures this week. I think I got 3 different eye looks, this one included. I don't know what's going on with my phone. Like somebody is desperately trying to get a hold of me. So not much as far as pictures went, but I really didn't have a bad time with this palette. It is, as I said, one that I use quite often. It is on my vanity. It sits there every single day. It helps me to blend out other eye looks. I don't wholly love Morphe shadows. They're not my favorite formula, if I have to be honest. I have found great success with some Morphe shadows that I do have, but they're very hit and miss if you ask me. Like I said, that last row in this palette was very grippy in the pan and a little more hard pressed than the other ones. I felt like it was a little more stiff and harder to blend. That also was the darker of the colors in the palette. I did see a little bit more fallout with these colors, and that doesn't mean that they don't blend. They did blend well. This one I used really often. It was probably my most gone into matte in the palette, and I would say that the longevity is a good 10 to 12 hours. They did perform better with primer than they did without. I feel like they started to fade around the 6-hour mark without primer. With primer, they last a good 10 to 12 hours for sure. The shimmers definitely performed better wet than they did dry, and with a more densely packed brush than a fluffy brush, of course. This palette, like I said, could easily be just your everyday run-of-the-mill neutrals palette if you're just looking at these two rows. Take all the purples out and there you go. It's just browns. I really feel like brown is what Morphe does well. The packaging is just like most other Morphe packaging. It is just a plastic black packaging with the Morphe symbol on the front, symbol, phrase, the word, branding, whatever. And then on the back it does give you a little blurb about the information. It does have the eyeshadow palette's name, and it's 15N. It does have a 12-month shelf life. The one distinct difference between this palette and most other Morphe palettes is, of course, the mirror that came on this palette. So I'm going to put it right back where it was, right here on top of my vanity, because it isn't my favorite, but it's definitely not my favorite. And it's just really a perfect neutral palette for helping out other palettes. I like using it in conjunction with other palettes, and I didn't mind using it on its own. I think I had plenty of looks that came out really nicely for just using this palette on its own. Alright guys, with that being said, I am going to dig into my phone and go to my Decide Now app. I do have a Samsung Note 9. I use the Decide Now app that is in our Play Store there, but it is just a Wheel of Fortune app, and you can get this app on any system. I know the iOS system has one as well. I just picked a wheel that I liked, which of course is the colorful one. Put all of my palettes into it. As I get new palettes, I put them into the wheel as we use them in the Palette Roulette series, or I declutter them. I take them out. Eventually, hopefully we will get through them all. To spin the wheel, you just press the button right there, and it spins. And it looks like we are using the Better London Natural Goddess palette. This is also a Boxy Charm palette. Let me go get that real quick. So this is actually a palette, you guys, that we got in Boxy Charm, and I'm just not really super sure about it. It might be a palette that I what do you guys think? I think that this is a palette I would struggle with. I think that this is a palette. I've never tried the Better London palettes though. I have tried a couple products by Better London, but I might be super happy that I used it. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to pick a second palette this week, because I feel like I'm not going to get on too fondly with this one. So we're going to pick another one to go with it. You guys will have to tell me how you feel about that. I just hope it's something that coordinates with it well. So we're going to spin. We ended up with the Tarte Graveyard Girl Swamp Queen palette. Let me go get that one as well. Alright, so here is the Tarte Swamp Queen Graveyard Girl palette, and I do feel like these two will be pretty perfect for each other. These are the two color stories that I got. And I feel like I could love them together. I've got a nice, you know, pop of blue in here, a pop of green in there, a nice like light pink shade, and then I've got all my neutrals in here and a really nice pop of really bright pink in here, which I think is actually supposed to be a blush, but I don't think I'd ever use that for a blush. We will see though. This palette did come with a brush. I always take the brushes out of my palettes and put them in my little drawer over there, but what I also love about these palettes is they're both kind of like natural woody themed. It's kind of neat. So these are the two palettes that we're using this week, and this is atypical. We typically don't go into two palettes, but I really feel like this isn't going to do it for me, and it is a brand new palette. So I'm almost in the mindset that if I, you know, don't have to use this week, I won't use it, and maybe it's just a palette I'll give. I know my sister's been looking for some palettes, so this might just be one that I toss her way that is brand new. So it's also one that we got in Boxy Charm, and you know, sometimes you get stuff in Boxy Charm that you're just not too fond of. So that is all I have for you today. That is my Palette Roulette number 51. Moving on into number 52. It is hard to think that next week we'll have been doing this for a full 52 weeks. So a full year we'll have been doing this, which seems crazy to me. I'll have to go back to my first one and just kind of reminisce. You guys, if you want to watch the whole series, I do have the playlist linked down in my description box. I hope that you're enjoying this series. I really love having you along. Please leave me a comment down in the comments section letting me know what you think of the two palettes this week versus the one palette and how you think they're going to work together. But also leaving me information that you have about the Morphe 15N. Maybe you have a different experience with it that we could all learn from, and I would enjoy hearing about it for sure. What palette are you using if you're doing a palette a week series with me? I would love to hear about that as well. And I just can't believe how many more palettes I still have to get through, and we've already been doing this for a year. So thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you are having an amazing Monday. And until next time, guys, bye.